Are you a business owner who's trying to build a successful business? Well, how about building to the point where you're number one in Canada? That's what we're going to talk about in this episode. Hello, lovely dynamic women, and welcome to the Dynamic Women podcast. I am Diane Rolston, your host. And today we're going to talk about building a number one business in Canada with Missy MacKintosh. Hi, Missy.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, well, hello. Like the title of this is pretty cool. And for our listeners, you probably want to know what type of business and what's Missy all about. So I'm going to share that first, and then we're going to dive into how to build a number one business and what that business is. So Missy MacKintosh is an internationally acclaimed makeup artist with over 16 years of experience. Her work has been featured in the Huffington Post, Daily Mail, Cosmo, among others. And in 2016, she fell in love with clean beauty, but could not find products that held up to her picky standards. So she took matters into her own hands and built Miss Mack Clean Cosmetics from the ground up in her small town basement, while perfecting each product with 2 Canadian female chemists. I love that part. I'll have to ask about that too. From grassroots to now 2 brand concept stores and an online store with award-winning products and services, she's on a mission to empower humans everywhere. That makeup does not define them. It's merely a tool of empowerment. Wow. So much for us to go on here, Missy.
I got goosebumps. Thank you so much, Diane.
Yeah. Well, I just want to first start off with, like, 16 years ago, you jumped into being a makeup artist. What was the desire behind that?
Yeah, oh my goodness. So I've been obsessed with makeup since I was 3. My mom never wore it. So it was like I was always caught drawing and painting on my dolls with like the blue eyeshadow.
Yeah.
And then a little further down the road, I started just like playing with my mom's friends' makeup, and I would play photo shoots, and I would go to garage sales and pick up secondhand dresses, and like with the whole like camera that you would dispose and do a play photo shoot. I had no idea that that was a thing. And because my mom never wore it, I was constantly like up and down the makeup aisle, smelling all the things, feeling all the things. So instead of makeup, my mom actually put an artist easel in my bedroom, and I would constantly paint, and that would be my medium instead of painting on faces. So now fast forwarded till I was 14, my mom joined Mary Kay, and I thought I died and went to heaven. And I was like, oh my gosh, we have makeup in the house. And I was her right-hand woman for 4 years. I was known as the Mary Kay girl. And I started just doing side hustling makeup like for grad. And I was actually at a retreat in Dallas because I'm like, I'm gonna have a pink Cadillac. I already had the red jacket. I still have the Mary Kay Barbie in my office in the back here. Yeah.
Wow.
And so I was old enough now to sign myself up legally. And I was in Dallas at a retreat, and I met someone from Vancouver actually. And she's like, I'm going to go to school to become a makeup artist. I was like, shut up, you could do that. From like small town Salmon Arm, like not even small town, like I'm in the boonies. So I'm not even in town. And I'm like, oh my God, you can do that? So I got home, I Googled Blanche McDonald, and that fall I went to school. I graduated with honors, and I moved to Calgary right away and managed a counter for Makeup Forever before Sephora took over the world.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, so sadly, and when we were in Calgary, we actually ended up having a silent miscarriage, which brought us back to Salmon Arm. And at that point, I was headhunted to manage what was then the largest boutique in Western Canada with Shoppers Beauty Boutique, and the first one to have Makeup Forever. And then this whole life change happened at the age of 22 that really made me pivot and us pivot to come back to Salmon Arm so we could raise a family. And I didn't want to work at the Shoppers here. So I started working as a travel agent. And in fact, I was going to buy it. I've always wanted to be my own business owner. My dad ran a trucking company since I was little. So I've always been in the entrepreneurial industry. But makeup kept following me. I would do one wedding and I would do another. And it was snowballed to the point that I was working every single weekend on the summers. I was managing full-time, and I had a 2-year-old. So I had to make a decision of where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. And I started to get tendonitis in my working hand being from behind a computer. And I was like, no, this is what I want. I feel like I'm doing a disservice to the world by not actually going into my own power of makeup artistry. And at that point I was able to leave, and I started working in Kelowna quite a bit. For Opera Kelowna, Sweet Legs, I put together my own makeup artistry training program. And
Ooh,
then clean beauty came into my life. And now I like to say, not the rest is history, but this is a whole
yeah.
new pivot point into my career as a makeup artist.
Wow. So much for me to go on here, but you talked about clean beauty. I want to ask you about what that is so that people know, but I also just want to preface all of this by saying you are now Canada's #1 clean beauty line. And this all started from your small town basement. So we're going to talk about first what clean beauty is. And then I'm sure the listeners are like, what did that look like in your small town basement? Like building a business. But first, clean beauty, what is it?
Yes. So clean beauty. So unfortunately, this industry is self-regulated. There's a bunch of different chemicals and everyday products that are absorbing into our system. And this is where we're seeing for fertility issues, we're seeing cancer-causing issues, hormone disruptors, estrogen level issues. It's really sad. Once you kind of see it, you can't unsee it. And because it's self-regulated, for instance, the US only has 11 ingredients that are banned with the FDA. Canada has about 400, and the European Union has over 1,600 ingredients that are banned. And no one's watching. So, and it's sad to think that makeup, what I believe is a tool of empowerment, it's an art medium, should not be hurting us. Especially as a woman, we're exposed to about 168 chemicals on a daily basis. Think about our hair care, shampoos, our cleaning, our fragrances, all of that. And that's where we're seeing a rise of cancer, seeing a rise of fertility issues, is because you're not thinking about the products that you put on that you see. And it's all marketing. It's all a bunch of marketing, whole baloney, right? That, and again, no one's watching that, where you can put something that's clean, where people think that it's cruelty-free or vegan. That's what clean means, but it goes into the toxicity levels of these ingredients. Not only the toxicity levels, but where are these products ethically sourced? So sadly, mica can be mined unethically in India by children. And no one's talking about that. So you think about the price point of a cosmetics. Well, why is it that price point? Where is it being made? Is there transparency with the company? So as Miss Mack, myself and my executive educator, Heather Nightingale, who was actually my boss with Makeup Forever back in the day, we created an easy way, which we call tests. So if you're ever looking in Sephora or like Ulta Beauty or anything like that, we created this little test. So to me, she's like this little person that sits on your shoulder. And it stands for transparency. Is the company transparent? Ethics. Is it ethical? Is it ethically sourced? Mind all of that. Sustainability. So not only is the packaging sustainable, is it sustainably made? All of those things. Sourcing, where they're sourcing it from. There's another S, test. Transparency, ethics, sourcing, safety, and sustainability. So safety for your system. So it's kind of the questions that you want to ask yourself. If you can go to a brand and be like, and ask these questions and ask these hard questions, or Google the ingredients, and it comes up as one of the most toxic ingredients on the market, is there transparency in the ethics? Do they stand up to test? No, they don't. So we made this easy way for people to understand what true clean beauty is. And we are starting to see a shift in this industry where the FDA is finally stepping up and putting into place these rules with PFAs and talc. Talc, unfortunately, which is in everything, is a carcinogenic and is banned, especially in Canada and the US, to be used in products. But again, no one's watching that. So it's really an interesting, once you see it, you can't unsee it. I just had this conversation with someone this morning, and I could go on forever. Once you start going down the rabbit hole, you can't unsee it. And that's where, however, as a pro, and as pros are the hardest people to like convince to use a product, especially when it's new and it's clean. We need products to hold to light, to heat, to sweat. And it didn't exist. Like that, we kind of snubbed our nose to it. And I know because I am one. Heather's one, like we did it. And that's why I created Miss Mack technically to be the first professional performing line in Canada that held up to all of these, and to be like the Makeup Forever of the clean beauty world, because Makeup Forever is very dear to my heart. I actually studied airbrushing at the Makeup Forever Academy in Paris, and Danny Sands, the founder, is like my idol. She created it, Makeup Forever, just the way that I created Miss Mack. And that's our why, is because clean is not just a trend, it's here to stay. And we're going to see a major shift in this industry in the next 5 years, which is very exciting.
Yeah. So you've given us kind of a way to look at different companies, maybe our favorite company, or choosing new products. However, for me, like I'm too busy to do that. So I'd rather just buy everything from a company that I know is already clean, has already done the work for me.
Exactly.
So it's nice to know that you're really living and building the business according to those standards, which is really important.
Thank you.
You built this major company from your basement. And I know a lot of entrepreneurs, they're doing it from the side of their kitchen table or their spare room, their garage, wherever it may
Yeah.
be. So talk a little bit about those early days in your basement, what that looked like, what was happening.
Oh God. Well, Google and I were like this. So I've never met anyone who's built a cosmetics company before. So I had to lean on my manufacturers who were amazing, my chemist who was amazing in terms of formulating the product, but I had to do so I had to build the brand. I didn't know what branding was. I had to logo down to package design, down to every single aspect. And it can get really overwhelming when I look at my makeup kit of my mainstream one and be like, I need every single product in my kit in Miss Mack. And I will not be satisfied until that happens, because if you're building a brand, there's no point in using something else in your kit when you can have the potential of selling the stuff that you believe in. And so I was like, okay, how do we do this? Because it is very overwhelming. So I started reverse engineering things. I really leaned into a lot of business podcasts like Jenna Kutcher, Rachel Hollis, just to not only build the company that I'm building and marketing and learning all of those things, but also build the strong person that I needed to be able to move forward and to be the face of this company. When you were talking to me at the beginning, I would shake, I would sweat, I didn't know what I was building and I was scared to talk about it. So that was a really big moment in my life of knowing that no one is going to build this but me. So I'm the one that needs to talk about it. I'm the one that needs to figure out every single step. I'm not going to have this fairy godmother come in and be like, poof, you have a brand. Poof, you have every single product. So it was long and daunting. And as a perfectionist, as a makeup artist, and a perfectionist in terms of what my brand represents me, I had to kind of get over a few of those things. So like I said, Google and I became best friends. I really lean onto my support system in my community. We have a lot of programs called like Futurepreneur that helps with business plans. There's a program in our shoe shop and where I'm located called Shoe Shop Entrepreneur, and it's like a boot camp for entrepreneurship. And they go through, it's the best $100 you'll ever spend. We're so blessed to have this opportunity. And they literally go through from branding to business plans to finance to everything in basically a boot camp. And then at the end, you have the opportunity to pitch live to the dragons to win prizes and to win funding to get your business going. And I actually won. So that's when I decided like, okay, this is a thing. This is going to be a thing. We pre-launched before that with biodegradable glitter. So we're the first brand in Canada to release a biodegradable glitter at a retail level. When I was on my way to my manufacturers, when we were starting in 2017, the project stages, I'm like making my list of all my wish lists of all the things. And when I was doing the opera, I loved glitter. Like glitter just changes everything, especially on stage. And I'm sitting there in Calgary and I'm nowhere to fly. I'm filling out the list. And then this viral video pops up about how litter is glitter and it's hurting our eco waterways. And my heart like sunk. I was like, oh my gosh, I've killed so many fishes with my kit. And and you don't know what you don't know until you know. That's the big thing too. So you don't know what you don't know until you know. And at that point I knew. So I went into my manufacturer, my chemist, and I pitched her what I wanted to do. I want to be like the Makeup Forever of the clean beauty world, completely formulating everything from the ground up. And I want a glitter line. She's like, yeah, no, you can't have a microplastic in your line. I'm like, I know. So she's like, leave it with me. Let me see what we can do. A couple months later, she sent me samples of a biodegradable glitter. And I was like, okay, we need to be the first in Canada to release this because scientists are pushing to have a worldwide ban because they're considered like microbeads. Remember that were in toothpaste and everything? Yeah, glitter is classified as the same. So like Carnival, there's some European countries that have already started the ban, but we all love glitter, right? It all sparkles. I have it in my eyes right now.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, we need to be the first. And I'm like, this is going to be such a huge hit. I've known other brands that just had glitter and they're like everywhere. We launched it. It was like a dud. Like it still is the hardest sale to this day. Like it's great to say that like we have glitter, but people are like, oh my God, that's great. Like, I don't know how to use it. Like, I don't need it in my kit. So it really, right? Like it's that beautiful thing, but like, I'm not a glitter person and per se in makeup. I love how it sparkles. But it is a very much an overwhelming product to sort of use if you're a beauty newbie. So that was a really hard lesson to be like, okay, so not only that, but we had packaging fails. So like when we released our glitter envy, we call it, for environmentally friendly glitter. It needed a primer, because if you don't have something for it to stick to the lid, it's going to fall into your eyes, and we can't have that. So we have this gloss that we named Gaia Gloss, which is like a multifunctional medium. It's actually a lip gloss, but it's amazing where we can use it in all sorts of places. And it's the primer for our glitter. Well, we had it in a little pot. And again, you don't know what you don't know until you know. And I sourced eco-friendly plastic. And while the circumference of the lid was a little bit wider and a little bit shorter, the moment you twisted it, just even the tiniest little bit to close it, the whole thing would crack. So I had 2 years of my life being like, don't over twist the lid or else it'll crack on you. Don't over twist the lid, it'll crack on you. And getting through those sort of like perfectionist moments of being like, just education is key. This is a first launch problem. I have learned that there's always going to be a first launch problem, and that's okay, because that's how we grow. And it took a long time to be like, okay, well, that was a fail. How do we move on from that? Okay, barcodes. Well, I don't know about barcodes. No one's here to teaching me about barcodes for cosmetics. So I Google it, and this free app comes up. Well, that's illegal. Thank goodness that was just for the glitters. But yeah, you need to actually register your barcodes with a company called GSI. I wouldn't have known that. How would I have known? Google didn't tell me that. So it's kind of like knowing that you are going to fail, and there's going to be ways for you to grow from that failure. And my biggest take is, if you're not failing, you're not growing. So that's how every single product from formulating took us 1.5 years to formulate our product. So patience is a really big one, where everyone's like, oh my gosh, you did this so fast. And I'm like, oh my God, I wanted this done in 6 months, and I wanted it launched to the world. But there's always going to be, so it's just that, like, knowing that this is just a phase and we're going to get through this. And sort of the longer you take to not perfect it, but like make it as best as you can make it for the client, the better you're going to see a long-term, you're going to see a longer success rate. So it's not like a fast fashion or fast brand, like where it's called private labeling, where you put your brand on something and you take it to market. That's not at all what we're doing. And Rome wasn't built in a day. So I constantly have to give myself credit of like, okay, this is where this is the next step. How are we reverse engineering it? Okay, I need a product. Okay, I need a manufacturer. Okay, so now we have that part. Now we need a website. Okay, let's find how we can do a website. Okay, well, what's the next step, right? It's kind of like, I knew as well, like we weren't going to sustain on glitter sales. Okay, well, we need the color now. And you don't know what you don't know what you don't know until you do it. And there was a lot of fails in terms of overshooting for packaging. When we were short, I was short to actually get the product filled and put to market. And it's just like, again, you don't know what you don't know until you do it. So the beginning days were like a long struggle in my office, in my basement.
Let me pull some of the learning here for our audience. So in the beginning, I'm hearing that you leaned on Google for some things, but then later on learned that some things aren't great that way. But you tapped into your local community and what business resources were already there and what business education was already there, which is awesome. And then you stepped forward into like a competition. And in order to, I'm guessing what that did for you, not only by winning did you get the money, but it also gave some brand and personal awareness of who you are and what you were doing, and
Absolutely.
the confidence to do that. So wanted to highlight all those different things. Plus you pulled in the right people. So you pulled in the right manufacturers and the chemists and all these people to support the process, where I think a lot of people try to just go it on their own. And the cool thing is, you didn't know that you'd be this big business. You just knew, I'm going to do the next step and the next step and the next step. And so for those of you out there that are thinking, well, I never planned from the beginning of being big, so I won't be big, or I won't get far, I won't be able to build a #1 business because that wasn't the plan from the beginning. I'm hearing that was never your plan. Your plan was just, I love makeup and I want to put some really good, clean beauty out there.
Exactly. That we're safe for all of us. Yeah, that we're safe for all of us. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so awesome. So you mentioned some of your failures, which I've been guilty of failures because I was just naive and didn't know, like your barcode experience, but also failures in launching something that just didn't work. So how did you get over the failures?
Oh yeah. I learned to not beat myself up over them, and that if you don't have failure, you don't have growth. Nothing is going to be perfect the first time you do it because you've never done it before. So I've
Yeah.
never launched a product. I've never sourced a product before. I have never done this before. So I had to give myself a bit of like some grace on
Grace.
this, especially as a professional makeup artist. Like that's so picky, and like that's your life work, right? So I expected this launch to be exactly the same, and it's perfect. Like you see on the internet, you see at Sephora, you see at Ulta, and you see all these big brands that are going to market and they look so glamorous. Well, literally down to like pictures, like down to branding, down to product shots was done by me in my basement. So you can kind of see that it's not perfect, and that's okay. At least we're showing up. That's the biggest thing too, is you just have to show up and keep going. So our first fail, when that cracked, my husband joked about like, oh, it's Miss Crack. I'm like, no, that could be a thing. Let's not say that.
No.
And it was leading into that humility and talking about it and educating our clients and educating on social media. This is the issue that we're dealing with. Please bear with us. Don't overturn it. We had people duct taping that lid. We had people depotting it into a different lid. Anything that they could do to keep that lid together, they did it. And I'm so grateful that because a lot of times you're like, oh, this lid is, junk. We're going to throw it out, and you move on to the next brand. But I had such a backing with my community because I built my community prior with my makeup artistry business, that people believed in me, and they're like, that's okay. We understand that this is the first launch. I didn't understand that because I was like, I wanted this perfect. And I was so mad for so long, and I had to lean into it and be like, it's okay. We're going to move on. Now I know what to do for the next one. So when we launched our foundations, our lipsticks, and our art shadows, I knew what I was looking for. And I knew I had to invest into better packaging for it to be a longer sustainability.
Yes.
And that's what I did. So, but if that failure didn't happen, those steps wouldn't have happened.
Exactly. Yeah. It makes you a stronger person, and it really it tests your passion, but it's just seen as one other step on the process. And what I love is your connection to your community, your authenticity in being like, yeah, we now realize this was a mistake on our part, what we're fixing it. And you were giving kind of some tips to them rather than just like, oh no, you must have done that. You took ownership. And I think that's something that everyone needs to remember, is what you put out there might not be perfect, but what you do with that and how you fix it with your customers is going to be what actually keeps you in business or not. So
100%,
congrats on
100%.
that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
You have had a lot of exposure. You've won different awards or been in different magazines and things. And so how did you get those opportunities? Because in order to be number one, you need to be more known. So how did you get those opportunities?
So a lot of them, they were coming. I would have to say the very, very first one was the Small Business Award. Someone nominated us for a Small Business Award back in 2020. And as for Best Youth Entrepreneur back in my youth days before I was 35. And I had never done, besides Shoe Shop Entrepreneur, I had never really like written out or like pitched to someone outside of my community. That was the big thing too, is that I'm in Salmon Arm in the shoe shop I have, or the Okanagan. I had to go and actually physically pitch outside of my community in Vancouver. So that was like a huge step for me to go and be like, okay, we're going to go and see if it's not just my community that feels this way, but if it's others and outside of other communities that are feeling the same way that they feel, and it's not just a biased opinion. And we ended up getting finalists. So I ended up getting to go. It was literally 3 weeks before lockdown in February 2020 at the Vancouver Conference Center. And I walked into this big room at the Vancouver Convention Center, and it was like 500 people, glitz and glam. And then there's my video up, and I've literally only been launched not even a year yet, because we launched our color in May 10th of 2019. And this is February 2020. And there I am. And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. Like I'm up against people from Vancouver, all over the places, and I'm just in my little small basement. And from that, it snowballed. Once you kind of do one, then people find you. Google is a very powerful tool.
Mhm.
And other magazines were coming in and being like, we would like to feature you. We think your story is amazing. We would like to have you as the top 10 most influential businesswomen of Canada and have your story into our magazine. And I was like, this is insane. So, and then we finally then we won started winning clean beauty awards. So our art shadow has won twice in the global clean beauty award for best eyeshadow. The first year we beat out Pure Cosmetics from my basement, which is really big. And when we first won, I was too scared to talk about that. I was too scared to actually be like, we won and we beat out Pure Cosmetics. It took me up until a year ago, really, to be like, this is a big deal, and to actually publicly put it out there, be like, this is who we are, and this is our competition, and we won. And then every year we've been part of it. And last year we won for best sun care with our body glow oil, and it's an amazing product like no one else, like nothing else. And we beat out a brand from Korea, which was huge, and we say that everywhere. I'm like, yeah, we beat out a brand from Korea. Like, this is big. And we had to ship these products to places we've never even heard of before. So it's like, when these opportunities come up into my email, I'm constantly saying yes, like, yes, I would love to be part of this, because it really helps you hone in on your story. It helps you write, because I'm not a very good writer. Shoot, we have spelling mistakes even on the box for foundation because I did it back in whenever. And it was just like, kind of once you do one and you get your name out there and people start Googling your name and all these accolades come up, it builds your credibility in the industry, and it builds you as a credibility as an entrepreneur. And I never really, I was like, this is cool, this is great, but I never really honed in on that, to why this is so important, because we wouldn't have got to these places if it wasn't for that first nomination with the Small Business Awards in 2020. And it kind of snowballs. And it's just, if I don't have time for it, do you know what? And I've seen a lot of other people too, where they're nominated for, like, the Women of Influence with the RBC Awards, right? I've been nominated 3 years in a row, and as ones to watch, because we still were a startup. But like, that application is daunting. I can see why people don't have time to fill it out. And I always look at it as if I don't fill it out, I'm giving the person who nominated me a disservice, that I'm not grateful for the opportunity that they're presenting me. Yes, is it a lot of work? Yes, is it not taking away from my business, but it's a lot of time investment into that. But I feel that that's time investment worthwhile because they took the time to nominate me. And I've seen other people post that, thank you for all of these things, I just don't have time with everything else. And I just look at it just so differently. And because I'm so grateful, because I wouldn't be here without them.
And it's a priority, because this is how you've been able to have doors open to you and get really free publicity from pushing and accepting and saying yes to these. So I hope, listeners, that you're thinking about, like, where can you go and nominate even yourself for awards, or follow up with any opportunities you see out there to be featured in magazines, because it is a way of getting your business out there. So got a couple of questions left for you. You said that you were launching and you went for this award right before the pandemic. So did you need to do a pivot during the pandemic? Because you're a makeup artist. And so how can you be in someone's face putting on makeup and just all the other things? So what did you have to do during that time?
Yeah, so prior to COVID, my sort of game plan with Miss Mack was to go wholesaler, was to go B2B, because that's what everyone did. That's what you do when you have a brand, is you want to try to get into Sephora, you want to try to get with Well, that's the thing, that's what everyone does. And we were barely treading water, and I couldn't understand why. Like, it just wasn't working for us. And then COVID hit and they all shut down. And so I was like, no one is going to build this but me. Now it's almost gave me the freedom to be able to go and be like, and work on my business and not try to build it for someone else. Because I kind of felt like with retail, I was building someone else's business instead of building me. And it gave me the permission to do so. And I knew I had to flip it instantly. And I'm a huge educator. But then that first week of lockdown, I offered online Zoom lessons, and I had people from Boston to Newfoundland to Toronto joining in, and it boosted our online sales. It also gave people something to look forward to like get together with a glass of wine with women that you don't know, or people that you've never met before, and learn a new skill that you have all the products, and we record it and you get to save it and you get to watch it again. So it was like, it gave people excitement, and it gave people something to look forward to in the day during such a terrible thing that's going on in the world. And because of it, our online sales boosted up. So once things opened up, people were coming and shopping in my basement because we lost all of our local retailers. And at that point, weddings for me here never stopped. They were just smaller. So I really honed in on my hair skills and being kind of like the one token hair and makeup. One woman show, because you had to. If you didn't, you would, you might not have a job because you took out too many people when you could only have 13 or whatever in your little area. And so that never stopped for me that season. It just was smaller. And I really honed in onto my hair skills. And then people started shopping in my basement. So not only were we doing lessons in my basement, I had my training program that I was teaching in my basement. And it just was kind of snowballing to the point like, oh my gosh, I need to find my own space. And my skincare was actually made in this very spot that we're in today. I worked with another female local to create our skincare from the ground up. We brought in our proprietary ingredient with Miss Mack and we formulated for 6 months. And that was something that we were really like, we're working with Salmon Arm. It's made in Salmon Arm for skincare. And she messaged me the same day that I was looking for a space. And she's like, hey, I've decided to move to Saskatchewan. I hope you'll still work with me. I'm like, of course, we made this amazing 2 products. And I was actually across the street. And I came in and she's like, yeah, I don't know what to do with my lease. I'm going to have to have an exit plan. And I'm like looking at it. And I'm like, no, I'll take it. Like, I will take over your lease. Like, we have the Trans-Canada highways right here. You can see it. If you're heading from Calgary to Kamloops, you can see us from the highway. And I was like, no, this is perfect. Like, it's the perfect space. It's only 900 square feet. And I'm like, no, I'll take it. And she's like, oh my God, that's amazing. So I was like, okay, I'm getting out of my basement. And I've always wanted, it's always a pipeline dream of mine to have our own Miss Mack stores where we do the hair, we do the makeup, we do the services, we do the lessons, and then we have our retailer. And then behind this wall is where we have all of our distribution. So we house everything here in Salmon Arm. And during a global pandemic in April of 2021, I opened up our very first storefront and it boomed. We saw 600% in sales with our store. I created our free pampering sessions because makeup's not a passive sale. And I think that's why with retail for us, it wasn't working because our products are so unique and so multi-use that you need that education. So the ones that have hold on, they're now teaching and learning how to do the pampering sessions because you need that experience and you need that education and you need that feel. And after the pandemic, who doesn't want to be touched, right? Because you haven't hugged anyone or touched anyone in so long. So just to sit in the chair and just to get that beautiful facial massage was just like butter and something super magical. So from there, we went and opened a second store within that 6 months downtown Victoria for my executive educator, who is Heather Nightingale, who was my boss at Makeup Forever back in the day. And I took a risk going into a brand new market who's never heard of us in a city that got hit hardest with COVID. But I knew if I didn't take this spot, because we're right downtown across from Pagliacci's, that if I didn't take that spot will not be available to us and that opportunity will be gone. So we took a risk, but we're still here and we're doing it. And we won community votes in Victoria this January for bronze for best cosmetics store. And and now the plan is to franchise and to have more stores across Canada. This is kind of a crazy the way that if COVID never happened, it would have never forced me to go direct to consumer. It would have never got me out of my basement and into 2 storefronts in 6 months and to become Canada's #1. So
I love the lesson from that is you don't have to do things the way everyone else in the industry is doing. You can be a trailblazer and really carve your own path, and to take maybe things that would be seen as an obstacle and turn them into an opportunity. You just do that time and time again through what you've told me in your stories. So your educating is a big thing. And I know that you've got a gift for everyone listening, which is the Contouring 101 video. Tell us a little bit about that. That's correct.
So big thing here is lessons. So we do and workshops, and even in our pampering sessions that we offer free all day, every day, we still are teaching you a little bit about your bone structure and contour. So contouring is when you are pushing points away in your face to get that beautiful, I call it like the silhouette of the face. Back in the day, it was more of everyone needs to have an oval face. Some man made that back in the day, that was the most ideal face shape for a woman. So he created a heart shape, a oval face, a triangle face, a diamond face, and then you contour and push those points away so it looks more ideal, more oval. Long gone are those days. So I created what's called the Miss Mack facial guides. And once you understand your guides, you can go into your makeup seamless every time. And the biggest thing with contouring is for just following your natural cheekbone to give that beautiful definition. And especially when we're on Zoom, it's a really nice way because sometimes the lights can flatten you, or we're one dimensional as opposed to 3-dimensional. So it just brings those beautiful contouring back
Amazing.
to our face.
Yeah.
So it's really easy. I go down into depth, the whys, the placement, the bone structure, the brush and why the brush is so important, and the color that we use is so important too. So I'm going to guide you. It's about actually it's an 11-minute video and it's for yours to keep. So make sure no one else can see this on YouTube but you. You can keep it. You can always come back to it. And then there's also a promo code as well to save 20%, and you get a free gift as well. So the promo code is DWS23.
23 to get 20% off. So amazing. All of that will be in the notes so that anyone and everyone can go and pick these things up and get a deal, so that, and now you've seen it, you've heard about it, that just right beside where Missy is right now is where they're going to pack up your order and send it out to you. So final message to our audience based on the idea of you building a #1 business in Canada. Like what's your final message to everyone out there, especially if they want to build a strong and successful business as well?
Yeah, I think leaning into your failure is huge. Knowing that if you're not failing, you're not growing, and no one is going to build your dream but you. If you have a vision of being a global brand, no one else is going to do that. No one else is going to figure out a way. No one else is going to hustle the way that you hustle to make that happen. So know that, and consistency compounds. Like sometimes it feels like you're doing the things and nothing's happening. That's how I felt for 1.5 to 2 years when I was starting at the project stages of Miss Mack. But it does. And you just staying consistent, and one day you will get there.
Amazing. So listeners, you're going to get there. Just put one foot in front of the other. Do the work, put in the work, and say yes to opportunities. That's one of the things that definitely was a highlight for me in what you were saying. So thank you so much, Missy, for sharing. Thank you for bringing your gifts. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been so much fun.
Yay. So for those of you listening, if you haven't yet, hit subscribe, and we'd love to hear what what you think of the show. So write us a review, and when you do, please screenshot it, send it to team@dianerolston.com, and we'd be happy to send you a little something special in the mail. So include your mailing address as well. And if you have someone in your life who loves makeup, then send them this episode. And if you have someone in your life who's building a business and maybe needs a little encouragement, then this episode is also for them. Until next time, everyone, stay dynamic. Bye.